The shadows of the Cold War, the world, in the decades after World War II, was a powder keg waiting to explode. Two superpowers rose from the ashes, one preaching freedom and democracy, the other ruling with the iron fist of communism. This was the Cold War, a conflict unlike any before, fought not with armies on battlefields, but in the shadows, in whispers, in secrets. It was a war of ideas, a war of influence, a war where the threat of nuclear annihilation hung over every home, every city, every heartbeat. Yet the deadliest battles weren't fought with bombs or guns. They were fought in silence, in the unseen corners of the world. Espionage became the ultimate weapon. On one side, the CIA, America's elite intelligence agency, sworn to protect the free world. On the other, the KGB, the Soviet Union's fearsome network of spies, masters of deception and manipulation. Both sides poured billions into a silent arms race, a battle of wits, courage, and betrayal. But it wasn't just about stealing secrets. It was about controlling the truth itself, shaping governments, rewriting history, without ever firing a single shot. Every agent walked an invisible tightrope, where one mistake, one whispered word, could mean exposure or death. And within this deadly game, some players were more than just spies. They were ghosts, invisible, untraceable, capable of altering the course of history without anyone ever knowing their name. They moved in plain sight, trusted by some, feared by others. And yet, history would almost forget them. The Cold War was a world of paranoia, suspicion, and shadowed corridors. Alliances were fragile. Information was currency, and every handshake, every smile, could hide a lie. And in this world, the deadliest players were often the ones you never saw coming. This is the story of one of those players, a double agent whose actions shook nations, whose secrets reshaped strategies, and whose name you've probably never heard. In a world built on secrets, trust was a luxury few could afford, and betrayal could be fatal. His name meant nothing to most people. Not a headline, not a name carved into history, just another quiet figure, hidden in the background of world events. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a general. He wasn't the kind of man anyone would notice. And that was his greatest weapon. By day, he looked ordinary. A calm, polite man, always early to meetings, always composed. His colleagues called him disciplined, maybe even boring. But behind those tired eyes, behind that well-pressed suit, was a storm of secrets powerful enough to destroy nations. He held a government post, nothing too special. A mid-level diplomat, a translator, maybe a political analyst. Someone trusted enough to handle classified papers, but unimportant enough to avoid suspicion. That was the beauty of his disguise. He didn't need fame or glory. He only needed access. Each morning, he walked into his office with a briefcase in one hand and a secret in the other. He smiled at guards. He exchanged greetings with coworkers. But every handshake, every glance, was part of his act. He was already working for someone else. No one around him suspected that behind those calm eyes lived a man divided in two. A patriot by day, a traitor by night. His rise through the ranks was slow, deliberate, almost invisible. He was careful, never too ambitious, never too bold. But every promotion, every new clearance level, brought him one step closer to the heart of the Western intelligence machine. Soon, he was reading reports that most agents would kill to see. He was in rooms where nations were shaped, where strategies were drafted, where wars could begin or end with a single decision. And all the while, he took notes. mentally recording every secret, every plan, every whisper, to deliver them straight into the hands of the enemy. This was no ordinary spy. He wasn't driven by greed or fear, but by something far more dangerous: conviction. He believed in his cause, and that belief made him unstoppable. The perfect double agent, hidden in plain sight. History would later call him one of the most dangerous men of the Cold War. But right now, in this moment, he was simply another face in the crowd, a name you don't know, but one that changed the course of history. Every double agent has a beginning, a moment when loyalty fractures, when truth blurs, and the line between right and wrong disappears. For him, it started quietly, not with blackmail, not with greed, but with belief. He watched the world tear itself apart. America and the Soviet Union, two giants locked in a dance of destruction. He saw propaganda flood the airwaves. He saw governments twist truth into weapons. And slowly he began to wonder, who was really the enemy? That question became a seed, a dangerous seed, planted deep inside his conscience. And when the right person came along, the seed bloomed. They found him during an overseas assignment, a simple meeting, a quiet dinner, a conversation about ideals, about balance, about peace. But beneath the charm was a trap, one spun with patience and precision. The recruiter wasn't just another spy. He was an artist. He painted a vision of a fairer world, where information could restore balance, where truth could humble the powerful. And our man, tired, disillusioned, brilliant, listened. He didn't think of it as betrayal. Not yet. He thought of it as correction, a way to fix a world gone mad. One meeting led to another. A handshake led to a promise. And before long, he crossed a line he could never uncross. He became a double agent, a shadow walking between two worlds, serving both, trusting neither. His first assignments were simple: passing low-level files, reports, harmless data, just enough to prove loyalty, just enough to earn trust. But the deeper he went, the greater the stakes became. Soon, he was feeding information that shaped real history. Documents about missile deployments, plans for nuclear defense, operations so secret even his superiors didn't know they existed. He played both sides masterfully. To the CIA, he was reliable, cautious, loyal, predictable. To the KGB, he was priceless, a living, breathing window into America's most guarded intelligence. He didn't need to pull a trigger to cause destruction. A single folder, a single report, could move armies, shift policies, and end lives. Governments changed their military strategies because of him. Operations failed, alliances cracked, and each time chaos followed, he remained calm, the perfect ghost, hidden in plain sight. But with every lie he told, every message he sent, the web around him grew tighter. He was no longer just a man with secrets. He had become the secret itself. Work went unnoticed. His reports passed through diplomatic pouches and secret couriers, each one carrying the power to rewrite history. He wasn't just a spy anymore. He was a silent architect, reshaping the balance of power between East and West. One of his earliest leaks exposed a hidden network of Western informants operating deep inside Eastern Europe. Names, addresses, entire operations gone overnight. Agents who had spent years gathering intelligence simply vanished. Some were captured. Others were never heard from again. To his handlers in the East, he was a hero, a man who had crippled Western intelligence without ever firing a gun. But that was only the beginning. He passed along early blueprints of NATO's communication codes, documents detailing how nuclear launch decisions would be made, and reports mapping the location of missile silos across Europe. Each revelation shifted the chessboard. Each secret tilted the balance of fear. In Washington, confusion grew. Operations were collapsing without explanation. Allies began doubting each other. There were whispers, rumors of a mole buried deep within the system. Someone untouchable. The CIA launched internal investigations. They tore through files, interrogated agents, and even turned on their own. But the real traitor remained invisible. He had built his mask too well. Meanwhile, in Moscow, his information gave the Soviet Union the confidence to push harder, to deploy more missiles, to expand operations in Cuba, to test just how far America would go. Some historians believe his leaks played a hidden role in the Cuban Missile Crisis, a moment when the world stood seconds away from nuclear war. Because of him, the Soviets knew exactly how much time they had, and how the United States might respond. He was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost in the system. Every memo he touched became a weapon. Every classified report he shared shifted the Cold War's invisible front lines. Inside the CIA, paranoia spread like wildfire. No one knew who to trust. Every agent looked over their shoulder. Every success felt like a trap waiting to spring. And through it all, he smiled politely. He attended meetings. He shook hands with the very men hunting him. One of his colleagues once said, "He was the kind of man who could hand you a loaded gun and make you thank him for it." He had become the perfect illusion, a man who served two masters and betrayed them both, without ever revealing which side he truly stood for. But even the best illusions eventually begin to crack. Every double agent knows the rules. You can lie to the world, but you can't lie forever. For him, the walls began to close in slowly, like a tightening noose he could no longer see. The CIA had started to notice patterns. Operations failing, files missing, agents disappearing. And somewhere, deep inside the agency, someone was connecting the dots. They didn't have a name yet, just a shadow, a whisper that something, or someone, was bleeding secrets. But our man was always one step ahead. He changed his patterns constantly. Never took the same route twice. Never met the same contact in the same place. He spoke in codes, invisible phrases buried in ordinary conversation. Even his grocery lists carried hidden meanings. When he passed messages, they were disguised in the most unexpected ways. A folded newspaper, a seemingly random photograph, or a page torn from a children's book. He used invisible ink, hollow coins, and microdots, tiny images carrying mountains of secrets. One night, a courier failed to show. The drop site had been compromised. He waited in the dark alley, rain dripping from his coat, heart pounding against his ribs. A single misstep, a single flashlight beam, and the story would have ended right there. But luck, or something darker, was always on his side. He slipped away into the crowd, disappearing like mist before sunrise. Another time, during an internal audit, he was called in for questioning. Two senior officers across the table, files stacked high, a clock ticking in the background. They asked him simple questions about his travel logs, his contacts, his reports. He smiled through it all, calm, collected. He even offered to help with the investigation. When he left that room, the officers were convinced he was the most trustworthy man they had. That was his gift. Deception wasn't just his tool, it was his nature. But the more he lied, the heavier the truth became. He started sleeping with a revolver under his pillow. He checked the locks twice. He memorized every sound his house made at night. The creak of the stairs, the hum of the refrigerator, the whisper of the wind through the curtains. He could feel the hunt closing in. The faces at work changed. The tone in the briefings shifted. The tension was thick enough to cut. And yet, he stayed calm, because fear was fatal, and panic was the first sign of guilt. Every close call made him sharper. Every brush with death made him colder. He became what the Cold War demanded. A man with no past, no emotion, no weakness. But even ghosts leave footprints, and his were about to be discovered. For years, he lived two lives, one built on loyalty, and another built on lies. But every secret has a lifespan, and his was running out. The truth came not with a confession, but with a whisper, a tiny leak buried in a mountain of reports, an intercepted message, a photograph, a pattern no longer invisible. The hunter had become the hunted. When the CIA finally pieced it together, they couldn't believe it. The man they trusted, the man who sat in their meetings, who shook their hands, who guarded their most sensitive files, was the traitor they'd been chasing all along. By the time they moved in, it was too late. He was gone, vanished, leaving behind nothing but an empty desk and a trail of questions. Some say he defected to Moscow, welcomed as a hero, a man who had outsmarted the West for over a decade. Others believe he never made it that far, that the same people he served in secret turned on him, silencing him before he could speak. There are no official records of his death, no grave, no last photograph, just silence. And maybe that's fitting, because silence was always his greatest weapon. But what makes his story haunting isn't just how it ended, it's how it was forgotten. In the decades that followed, his name faded from reports. His operations were classified. His actions buried beneath new wars, new conflicts, new headlines. History had no place for ghosts. The governments he deceived erased him. The one he served quietly disowned him. And the few who knew his name were sworn never to speak it. He was a man who changed the course of the Cold War. And yet, history moved on as if he had never existed. But for those who still study the shadows, his fingerprints are everywhere. In the files that vanished, in the plans that failed, in the uneasy peace that followed. He shaped the world from behind a mask. And when the mask fell, the world looked away. Sometimes the deadliest wars are fought in silence, and the heroes, or villains, remain ghosts.